look at police registration and the regulation, registration and the regulation in nursing practice. Presenting, this is Andrew data. So we'll discuss police registration and regulation for nursing practice. Since we have defined some of the important terms in nursing and that we understand the origin of the nursing profession, we can now look at the policy, registration and regulation for nursing practices. This refers to This refers to issues over which nurse can be subjected to lawsuit and criminal prosecution with regard to their work. You know, to say that you are dealing with people and whatever you do, you should be accounted for. And hence, if you go, you divert from the norms, you can be sued for that. And so, this course will help you understand your role as a nurse, your rights as a nurse, and also the rights of the patient or the clients. Okay? It is important that nurses know their rights, that of the patient and their families in order to understand judicial processes. The privileges of the nurse, conduct legal issues, organizations that protect the interest of the nursing profession, and rights of clients are highlighted in order to ensure that in the course of practice and the nurse does not deviate from her or his spheres of practice. Okay? So, what are the objectives? We'll look at the two objectives. At the end of this unit, the learners should be able to define the law and constitution, explain the Zambian constitution. You understand that this topic is a very broad topic, so I've just dissected it. So I've just taken two objectives to look at this morning. So the other objectives will be looked at sometimes. So now, let's define the term law. What is a law? We are saying law is the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the action of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. So, when you look at law, these are regulations, okay, rules that a country or a community will put in, and this will put in to control, okay, to control the action of who? Its members of that country or members of that community will be controlled by that law. And failure to abide by those laws, you may be penalized for that. Okay? So, the whole system or set of rules made by the government of a town, state, or country, those are laws. Okay? And what is a constitution? Constitution is the fundamental law, written or unwritten. Okay? we are saying that a constitution is a fundamental law, written or unwritten, that establishes the character of a government by defining the basic principles to which a society must conform by describing the organization of the government and regulation, distribution and limitations on the functions of different government departments, and by prescribing the extent and manner of the exercise of its sovereign power. So that's a constitution. When you look at the constitution, we are saying it's a fundamental law. And that fundamental law, that is, it should be written or not written. Okay, it can either be written or not written. That establishes the character of a government by defining the basic principles to which a society must conform. Okay, so this constitution will describe the organization of the government and the regulation, the distribution and limitations on the function of different government departments. Okay, so that's a constitution. So, how about legislative? So, a constitution, we are saying, it's a legislative charter by which a government or group derives its authority to act. So, when you look at a constitution, we are saying it's a legislative charter, meaning it's a set or a document, okay, which gives authority for that group of people or for the government to act. This is the supreme law of the country. So we've heard most of the time they're saying no one is above the law. So what they imply is there is a constitution which needs to be followed, and no one can be above that constitution. That's why we are saying this constitution is a supreme law of the country. Okay. Also, we're saying it is a board of fundamental principles or established procedures according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. So, when that constitution and they accepted that this is how to be governed. Okay, so that's the order of fundamental principles or established procedures according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. Now, how about a policy? A policy is a broad guideline or framework that describes how the organization should carry out operation to meet goals and objectives. So, when you look at the policy, we are saying it's a broad guideline, meaning it will guide policies, guides the governance. Okay, it's a framework that describes how the organization should carry out the operation to meet its goal and objective. It is the basis of decision making. A policy is a basis of decision making. Okay. Then we look at the legislation. We are saying legislation is the act or process of making the law governing a country or an organization. Legislation is just an act or process of making the laws governing a country or organization. So that's legislation. So now let's look at the constitution. Okay, our constitution in Zambia. Introduction to the Zambian constitution. Having defined the terms related to policy, legislation and regulation for nursing practice, we shall now introduce you to the constitution, our constitution, the constitution of Zambia. Okay. So we are saying Zambian constitution is the supreme law of the land. Okay. Therefore, it binds every citizen or person of the Republic of Zambia, meaning no one should go beyond the Constitution. We are all bound by the Constitution. Okay, so whatever we should do should be in line with the Constitution that we are using in Zambia. Okay, if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, that other law is rendered void to the extent of the inconsistency. So, if any other law is inconsistent with the Constitution, so when you look at the Zambian Constitution, the Zambian Constitution, it prescribes how we should conduct, okay? If it comes to right of religious, for example, okay? We have that right, and no one can force us to belong to any other religion apart from that which we as individual we believe in. Okay, so anyone has the right to choose a party to belong to. Anyone has the right to choose a religion he wants to belong to. No one should force anyone to believe in whatever that one believes in. So if that person forces you to do otherwise, then that is contrary to the Constitution, and hence you can sue that individual. So the Constitution has 14 parts as follows. Part 1, so when you look at this Constitution, we are saying it has 14 parts, and different parts, they talk about different things. So beginning with Part 1, we are saying this talks about the declaration of the Republic, the sovereignty of the people of Zambia, the Constitution as the supreme law, and English as the official language of our country. So, knowing to say that we have different languages in our country, so the Constitution of Zambia stipulates that English will be our official language in this country, and we for that we should have a common understanding about the issues. Okay, we are saying that English is the official language in our country. That's according to our Constitution, and we are saying that our supreme law is the Constitution. So whatever we want to know, to understand, should be based on the Constitution. Okay. It also says, it also talks about the public seal national anthem, national flag, national emblem, and the national motto, that they shall be such as may be prescribed or under the Act of Parliament. So all these, the national seal, national anthem, national flag, national emblem, and national motto shall be the ones that were established and may be prescribed or under the Act of the National Assembly. Then part 2 says, this part talks about the citizenship. Okay? So citizens of Zambia here is every person who immediately before the commencement of the Constitution was a citizen of Zambia and shall continue to be. Okay? When this Constitution was being formulated, there were people who were there in Zambia at that time. Those people are Zambians by constitution because they were there by the virtue of them being in Zambia at that time. They continue to be citizens of Zambia. It also talks about the persons who are entitled to apply to be registered as citizens. So this part 2 also talks of people who want to be registered as citizens of Zambia. Okay. Under this part, Parliament may make provision for the acquisition of citizenship by persons who are not eligible to become citizens of Zambia. This part also establishes the citizenship board and talks about how a person can cease to be a citizen of Zambia. So when you look at this part 2, we are saying it has a body that looks at citizenship, okay? And that body is known as the Citizenship Board of Zambia. And it scrutinizes people based on their citizenship. And this body would determine how a person can cease to be a citizen of Zambia. Okay? Then we have part 3. Part 3 talks about the protection of the fundamental rights and freedom of the individual. Okay? So part 3 talks about the protection of the rights of an individual. So the fundamental rights under this part include life, liberty, security of the person, and the protection of the law. Freedom of conscience, conscience, expression, it talks are being discussed in this part. Assembly, movement, and association, those freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, freedom of associate, protection of young people from exploitation. Also, they are enshrined in this part 3 of the Constitution of Zambia. Then the freedom to protection for the privacy of his home and other property, and from the deprivation of property without compensation. They are discussed in part 3. This part also talks about the protection of rights to life, that a person shall not be deprived of life intentionally except in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense under the law in force in Zambia of which he or she has been convicted. So when you look at the right to life, we are saying this every individual in this country has the right to life, except in in situation where this person has been convicted and sentenced by the court of law in respect of a criminal offense under the law in force. Okay? So that's what this part talks about. And furthermore, it says a person shall not deprive unborn child of life by termination of pregnancy except in accordance with the conditions laid down under an act of parliament for that purpose. So now, when you look at it, meaning abortion in Zambia remains illegal. So under the law, you are not supposed to perform abortion unless with special cases, in special cases where the Act of Parliament has allowed that we can do abortions, okay? In which instances? In cases where you look at the life of an individual, life of the mother, okay? That's when you can be permitted to do an abortion, but not in any other situation. This article furthermore says, a person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life in contravention of the article if he or she dies as a result of the use of force to such extent as is reasonably justifiable in the circumstances of the case. So this article says a person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life in contravention of this article if he dies or she dies as a result of the use of force to such extent as is reasonably justifiable in the circumstances of the court of the case. So, for the defense of any person from violence or for the defense of property, okay? So, we are still looking at the person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life when he's giving defense of any person from violence or for the defense of property. Then in order to effect a lawsuit, a lawful arrest, or to prevent the escape of a person lawfully detained. So those are the circumstances when you will not be considered as deprived your own life. For the purpose of suppressing a riot, insurrection, mutiny, or if he or she dies as a result of lawful act of war in order to prevent the commission by that person of a crime offense. So, meaning this individual is protecting a human, okay? Is protecting human, is protecting, is being patriotic, okay? So that one will not be regarded as depriving his own life. So, protection of freedom of conscience, protection of freedom of expression, protection of freedom of assembly and association, protecting of freedom of movement, protection from discrimination on the ground of race, protection of young person from exploitation, derogation from fundamental rights and detention. So all those are purposes of suppression. Okay, purposes for suppression in a lion. Okay, so now let's look at the part 4. What does part 4 say? This article talks about the executive. So when you look at the executive, you are talking about the cabinet, okay? And this cabinet consists of the president, vice president, and ministers. So those are the people that make up the executive committee. So the function of the cabinet is to formulate the policy of government and to advise the president with respect to the policy of the government. So when you look at the cabinet, they formulate policies of the government and also advise the president with respect of to the policy of the government. The article also gives provision for the secretary to the cabinet, who is head of the public service and is responsible to the president. So we are saying that this article, part number 4, will give power to the secretary to the cabinet, who is this secretary to the cabinet is also answerable to the head of state, the head of state, who is the president. Okay. For securing the general efficiency of the public service, have charge of cabinet office. So the head of public service, we are saying it's he is in charge of the cabinet office, arranging business for one, keeping the minutes of the cabinet and conveying decision made in the cabinet to appropriate authorities. 2, we are saying the head of the public service have other function as prescribed by an act of parliament or as the president may direct. So that's part 4. It talks of the cabinet, the executive. It talks of the head of the public service, and it talks of this head of public service being answerable to the president, and also the president delegates other duties to this head of public services. Then part 5, we are saying this part talks about the legislation, the legislature whose power is vested in the parliament, which consists of the president and also the National Assembly. So part 4 and 5, they talk of the powers. Part 4 talks of the executive powers. Part 5 talks about the legislature. And when you look at these two, you realize that part 4 talks of the cabinet, okay? The cabinet that's composed of the president and his ministers, and also the public service, the head of public service commissioner. Then part 5 talks of the legislature whose power is vested in the parliament, which consists of the president and the National Assembly. This article further says the legislative power of the National Assembly shall be exercised by bills passed by the National Assembly and assented by the president. So meaning this part talks about the sitting of the parliament. In the parliament, they will present a bill, And that bill cannot be a law unless the president assent to it. The president should to sign to authorize it to be law. Okay? So where a bill is presented to the president for assent, he shall either assent or withhold his assent. Where the president withhold the bill, he may return the bill to National Assembly, requesting it to reconsider the bill on any specified provision. And if the request is considered, he shall assent to the bill within 21 days of the presentation. So within 21 days of presentation, that bill should be presented. Okay? Where the president withhold this assent to a bill, we are saying the bill shall not again be presented for assent. So the moment the president withhold his bill, then that bill will not be presented again for assent. Where a bill has been duly passed, is assented to it, we are saying the bill has been duly passed and the president has assented, that bill becomes law, and the president shall thereupon cause it to be published in the Gazette as law. So, not until the president signs that bill, then that bill will not be a law. And if the president signs, then that bill becomes assent. It is assented. Yes, Annie, you have a question? Hello? Annie? Okay, so this article further says, alteration of the Constitution is made through Parliament, period. No any person has the right or has the power to change the Constitution, to change law, or to add on the Constitution, okay? We are saying our Constitution is the...
What does the bill involve, sir?
Pardon? Hello?
What does the bill involve?
What does the...
Hello, sir.
Hello?
I'm asking, saying, yes. What does the bill involve?
The bill. Okay. When you look at
yes.
when you look at the Parliament, okay? In the Parliament, whatever they decide to consider, for example, let's say the term for the president is 5 years, right? And the president can only stand for 2 terms, okay? Then, before that came into law, it was a bill, okay? It was discussed in a bill, in Parliament, and that was a bill. And that was presented to the president. The president looked at that and assented to it, meaning the president signed that the term of office for the president should be 2 terms and should not exceed that. Before that, it was just a bill. Then when the president signed that the term for the presidency is 2 terms, then it became law because the president endorsed his signature to that, meaning he accepted, it became law. So a bill is that which before the president signs, okay? Is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
It's clear.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. So we continue. Sorry for interruption. Sorry for the interruption.